Dragon Ball Z, the Legacy of Goku, now on Gameboy Advance.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, I'm trying to get my energy up. We're going back to a Game Boy Advance series that is indeed near and dear to my heart, but I feel a bit stabbed in the back this time around. We're trying a kind of new video series here. Is it really that bad? And we'll be answering that question across various games, but since the Dragon Ball hype is high, and we've talked extensively about a slew of wonderful Dragon Ball games ranging from Budokai to Budokai Tenkaichi and my first time playthrough of Infinite World, I decided to revisit my childhood here on my favorite system of all time, the Game Boy Advance. If you're wondering why it looks this way, it's because, as you'll see here, boom, it is modded IPS screen, as I showed in my Lord of the Rings video. So I broke this bad boy out and said, I gotta give this thing some reps. What am I gonna do? I took out Legacy of Goku here on the Game Boy Advance. And we're gonna get into whether or not it really is that bad. So if you're new here and you're into nostalgia content and you're looking to make this
worthwhile for me,
consider subscribing. And with that, welcome to the channel. Let's talk about Legacy of Goku. I think for us to get into the meat and potatoes of this game, it's important to give you the lore of me and this game, because I entered this video very disappointed, and you're probably wondering, what's up with the energy, Maddie? This is a good vibes channel. Okay, allow me to explain. So I do love Legacy of Goku, but as we grow further apart from certain games that were a part of our childhood, sometimes when they're in a series spanning, in this case, 3 entries, so Legacy of Goku 1, 2, and Boo's Fury, you forget which entry it may have been that you liked, and you just generalize it and say, oh, I always liked Legacy of Goku. So for me, this was a slam dunk. Oh, this will be a great video for Retro Rebound, because I read the comments on the Dragon Ball video. A lot of people want us to throw it back to Legacy of Goku, and fret not, I have the complete in-box copy for the second game, but not the first game. That's because Legacy of Goku 1 is not good at all. Legacy of Goku 2 is this insane rebound that I remember I picked up at a Circuit City and adored, but here I was crossing the wires thinking I just loved Legacy of Goku in general, and how could you have such a poor framework if the sequel was amazing, right? Certainly, if the sequel was amazing, the first game had to be at least decent. Wrong! We're going to get into why. But first, the positive. So what works well in Legacy of Goku, I think, is its exploration. Not necessarily what you're doing, but for those of you who are like me and grew up during the Budokai Tenkaichi games, you'll know that the big focus there was fighting. And you'd see these iconic places from the show, from the movies, and you'd typically duke it out in there, but you wouldn't be able to walk around, interact, see what's up. And it's funny because even nowadays in something like DBZ Kakarot on PS4 and Xbox One, you'd think there would be a heavier level of interactivity in a semi-open world Dragon Ball game. And even there, it's like you drop in West City and you're just chilling there. You're like, oh, I'm here. And there's nothing to do. It's funny because I think Legacy of Goku manages to do more, and this game is from 2002. It's insane. Moving on, though, that exploration works in this game's favor because even in the opening moments when you're at the Kame house, and you're there with Roshi, Bulma, Gohan, Krillin, right? The start of Dragon Ball Z, as we'll get into it, starting off with the story. And you're just able to go inside Roshi's house, and you're picking up his dirty magazines as your first quest in the game. And you're going to pick up a bunch of them, hand them back, and get some sensu beans in return. And that's where Raditz will show up. But it was in that moment I went, it's just cool that I'm able to be here, walking around, and doing some quests. Now, I mentioned quests. The general elevator pitch for Legacy of Goku, for those who don't know, is a 16-bit action RPG. And I think its focus on quests and interactions with characters in its world is what makes it stand out compared to the rest of the games in the franchise, where a lot of them are fighting focused, and this game has fighting, albeit not great fighting, but it has fighting, but it's really that exploration in those areas in between, right? You know where every major beat, if you've watched Dragon Ball Z, where every major beat takes place. But it's the point A to point B that I think really helps this game go up another level. Just being able to explore the woods near Goku's house, to at least attempt to go inside Goku's house before he says, I have to go and save Gohan, which, makes sense, but Goku, in my opinion, is not a great father. So it's like, dude, just let me enjoy the moment here. Let me go inside your house. I just want to see what's up. And you can do something like that in Kakarot, of course, but it feels like the origin of those moments was here in Legacy of Goku. And it's cool. You can walk around the back of the house and there's Chi-Chi hanging out. You can talk to her, tell her, Gohan might have gone missing. I don't know. I'm going to go pick him up, though, from school, aka Raditz school, and figure something out. But I like that type of stuff. To me, that interaction is what lets you get more intimate with the series. That's about all the good stuff I have to say, though, because everything else is pretty bad. It really always comes down to balancing with these action RPGs. This will sound like a complete out of left field comparison, but I need you to hear me out when I talk about Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. This is a game that came out just earlier this year in 2022, and this game was developed by Team Ninja, where I feel like you just can't go wrong with them. They just hit home runs constantly. And when they're making this, if you will, Souls-like game, some difficulty, but it's an action RPG, kind of like Neo, just felt like a home run in the making. But as you get deeper in that game, the balance gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and eventually you're getting one-shotted, two-shotted. You feel like the game's just failing you. And I always say it, so pardon me for some redundancy here, but there's no worse feeling than when a video game fails you. You want to put all the tools in the player's hands and let them feel like, I've solved the task, or I have the ability to do so. It's just a matter of what I do, how I do it, and is the game screwing me over? You always want it to be fair, but fun. That's where a fun challenge comes into play, and that's why you have people loving the Soulsborne genre. When it comes to Strangers of Paradise, though, like I said, it just beats you down endlessly, and you don't feel like you have the tools to battle back. You'll grind, you'll get the end game gear, you'll have the best gear in the game, you'll still get two-shy, you'll still get worked over by status effects that are completely broken. The math in the game is just wrong. And I was just thinking of that experience when playing Legacy of Goku. It goes down to even Goku fighting wolves in the woods, and you're just throwing nice little punches at them, right? You're trying to knock them out. You got some ki blasts, and they just have a ton of health, and they'll knock you out in 3 hits. And the worst part is, if you're not constantly pause, save, then you are going to be in trouble, because when you die, back to the main menu you go. And that hurts. That is that old school pain that I had long forgotten. So when I put, it's funny. You put 10 minutes in, and you're thinking like, it's only 10 minutes from a bird's eye view, but it just hurts. You're like, I got to redo everything. I got to go over that side that I was exploring, loot that thing again, beat that enemy that was kind of a risky encounter. And what ends up happening is a lot of the restoration of your health, because the game's so difficult, leans into its leveling up system, which I've never experienced before. But it almost turns into this survival game, and it's really weird. What I mean by that is enemies hit really hard in this game. You'll be given sensu beans to start off, but if you're not really great at the combat in this game, which I don't know how you could be good at it without cheesing the game, which I'll get into in a moment, then you're going to lose health really fast. Enemies hit hard. The hit detection, yes, really, I'm going to use that term, when you're fighting is terrible. You'll whiff constantly. Enemies will stand inside you and continue to hit you, and they'll do what I like to call in old games death by touch, right? Boom, didn't even hit you. I just bumped into you. The old Castlevania effect. Oh, you're almost dead. Oop, got him. Oh man, makes me want to pull my hair out in some instances, but I don't know how I'm a Mega Man fan. I think I was brainwashed as a kid. But anyway, the combat is broken numerically. The combat, unfortunately, doesn't work in your favor deep on. And so what happens is, as you start using these items, like, okay, I'm going to heal here, I'm going to heal here, you start to run out of healing items. The game doesn't supply you with any way of getting them. And then the worst comes to pass. You have like a shrivel of health. You're just trying to box your way through enemies, running laps, cheesing them with ki blasts, letting your energy recharge. They run away, making sure they don't go off screen so they restore their health, following them, shooting them again. Rinse and repeat, come back around, and eventually you level up and your health comes back up a little bit. And you're like, okay, now I can challenge something. I don't think that's what a Dragon Ball game wants to be. Not the challenging part, but the running around, restoring ki, feeling really weak, survival game energy. That's what this game gives off. And it's fascinating because, again, I was going through it while I was playing it again, thinking, hey, this is something I loved, right? And then I look and I think, oh, it was the second game. So the second game in the series, you get to play as Gohan. You get to level up. There's a lot more exploration. It opens up more. There's side areas. There's much more customization. It leans into its RPG roots a little bit more. It absolutely delivers on what the first game couldn't. That's because they switched developers too. Whereas you'll see on the cartridge, it was Infograms behind this bad boy. And yeah, no longer are they in the picture because they did this game, Legacy of Goku, or as I like to call it, Log, and they also did Taiketsu, which is historically known as one of the worst Dragon Ball games as well. So they went 2 for 2 on absolute duds, so it only makes sense that this didn't deliver, but then a new developer stepped in and absolutely knocked it out of the park. As I mentioned, though, this is a 3-part series. There was also Boo's Fury, because each part was like a different series in the Dragon Ball franchise. And Boo's Fury was one that I loved quite a bit. And it's always interesting going back to these games and watching re-reviews of them. I actually indulge. Normally, I don't like to watch other people's content before I post my own review, but I like to indulge from time to time because in this instance, with something retrospective, it's neat to see people dive deep into something that was a big part of my childhood. Maybe something y'all feel about this channel here, I don't know. But it was neat to see people break down how some people will argue that Legacy of Goku 2 is actually broken and not as good as you think it is. Whereas for me, and perhaps it's nostalgia talking, I think it's fantastic, but it's also balanced out by this game here, which isn't fantastic because of that combat, because of that exploration, and also because of the aimlessness. One thing that I think improves throughout the series that this game just does not get right at all is, again, it's an RPG. You're going to pick up quests, and some of them are simple. They're self-contained. You know, pick up, like I said, Master Roshi's Dirty Magazines. It's a pretty simple one to complete. But there's others where you're looking for King Kai, and you fell off a snake's way, and you're like, okay, what do I do now? And you talk to a spirit. He goes, hey, try to find me. Disappears. So you're looking around thinking, okay, I'm going to just poke around for a little bit. Just see if I can find this spirit. You find a gym, a fitness center. And that was a little strange, but at the same time, that's what makes the game kind of appealing is these little side areas, these encounters you can have. I talked to a dude standing in front of a car. He's going, oh man, I lost spirits. And I'm just running around talking to things. Nothing's really progressing. And it feels like one of those old school games where you have to luck into the progression. And that's never a good feeling of just stumbling your way through the dark, like the lights are off and you're looking for your lamp. How do I turn it on? Where I can't see where I'm going. And suddenly you find the lamp, you click it on, and let there be light. That's kind of what this game's quest structure is like. Just stumble into the dark. Oh, there's the spirit, and let there be light. Now I know what to do. I just feel like there's a lot of stumbling around. And it's funny because I think of a game we talked about very early in the life cycle of Retro Rebound, which is Golden Sun. And I don't feel like that game ever confused me. And it was a much more open world. It was a broader experience. It was obviously a much more hardcore RPG. There was just so much that was bigger and better about it. I know Golden Sun is known as one of the top Game Boy Advance games ever made. But my point being is this game, comparatively speaking, is much more condensed in its focus, and it still manages to lose me in some quests where I don't know what to do, and you need them to progress, and you also need them to level up. So it's just becomes a frustrating experience really quickly between the combat, which you just can never fail in a Dragon Ball game. I must say this. You can never fail Dragon Ball combat. And especially if your failure is making you feel particularly weak. I know it's the early days of Goku. He's not going Ultra Instinct, but come on now. My man shouldn't be losing to wolves in 3 hits. That cannot be happening. So this is the type of stuff that I'll probably be going through for all of you here on the channel, provided this is something that you enjoy, because there was a little bit of fun in re-experiencing the childhood and cementing, this is a game I can get rid of, right? These games are expensive, for those who don't know. I do have the complete in-box copy of Legacy of Goku 2 with the map, which goes for around the time I got it, $60, but I know it's gone up since then, because Legacy of Goku 1, I saw it going for like 60, 70, it might be upwards of $80. And I'm thinking, oh, I pity the fool who buys that. Because for those who don't know, my original goal was to collect all the Dragon Ball games. But this stopped me in my tracks. Obviously, you've heard me say this in a couple of videos, but I'm big about condensing the collection and being intelligent about what you have on your shelf. I don't have limitless space. I can't just throw every game I buy onto the shelves. So what I do throw on there needs to count. Do I really want to collect the complete in box Legacy of Goku 1, Taiketsu, just to say I have them all? Will I ever actually pull them off the shelf and play them? I can't see it outside of this moment here. But this is just going in the pile of like, okay, we might give this one away or something. Feel bad for the person at Goodwill who's going to pull this off the shelf and say, hey, what's that? Cool. Because there's a sense of cruelty in that. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Legacy of Goku 1. Perhaps we'll move on to Legacy of Goku 2. You let me know down below. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into another Retro Rebound, and I will catch you next time. Peace out.